Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. I'm excited today to be joined by the Nyack men's soccer coach, Alex Schmidt. Alex, welcome.
Welcome, everyone.
Well, let's just jump right into it. In terms of recruiting, actually, I'm going to start by saying I was clicking around the website and I was especially taken aback by the fact that your recruiting page had actually a lot of information on it. A lot of times, you click on the recruit page of a website and it just goes straight to the questionnaire, and that's really it. But I mean, you actually talked about what you're looking for this season, and there's a lot of good information on there. So kudos to you on that, coach. But when you're recruiting, when do you start looking at players? How old are they when you start really focusing on recruiting them and bringing them in?
So I think very serious we get right around their junior year in high school. We'll start looking at them and just, kind of like picking different positions that we know we're needing for the next year or 2 years, and just kind of like go from there, have kind of create a database of players that we're looking at that we feel like could fit into what we want to do here. And then we're just kind of, start to make the first contact, get some information out there, just introducing ourselves, and then really going from there and seeing if there's something, if that would be a good fit or not. Obviously, there's a lot more steps, but that's usually when we start. There's once in a while, like a sophomore, freshman, but obviously we can't really make contact with them yet at this point. But we'll note it down. We'll keep an eye on them and just kind of like see how they develop over the next couple of years. But very serious is junior year.
Okay. How many inbound contacts would you say you're getting in a typical week?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
My email inbox, I think, especially right now because of COVID and a lot of athletes having that extra year, it kind of tightens up and makes the pool bigger, makes it harder to find spots. So I think, I get on a daily basis somewhere between like 50 to 100 emails from recruits that reach out saying they want to look in. You got the agencies reaching out. So and sometimes the agencies show you not just one player, they show you 5, 6 players. So there's a lot of players out there at the moment.
So what do you obviously you're scrolling through a whole bunch of emails. So how do you prioritize? How do you filter? What do you like to see in a first communication from a prospect that's going to, kind of pique your interest?
Yeah. That you did some research on us. That's kind of like the biggest thing. If I feel like we're just part of a mass email, and I've get so many emails where it says, I'm super interested in your program in your school because you have this major and we don't even have the major, or I'm very interested. Like my first year that I took over, we started as a struggling program. We had a 2-14-2 record, and people were saying to me, "Oh, I'm really interested in your successful soccer program." I'm like, "We had a 2-14-2 record. We're not successful. I'm sorry. We want to get there, but we're not quite there." So it's like, that you've done your research, you kind of looked into it, you really looked at us and be like, that could be a school that I'm interested in. And then tell me why. Like why do you feel like we could be a good fit for you, but why can you be a good fit for us? That usually piques my interest when I realize, okay, there's a player that really had put some thought into this recruiting process and us as an option. Let's explore that further. And then we'll go obviously from like video footage always helps if that's attached, just to kind of like get immediately an idea, is this a player of quality that would have a chance in our program or not? And that always helps too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Where do you like to go to see players? I mean, you on that recruiting page, you mentioned a couple tournaments that you go to, but those seem like those are summer tournaments. Are you doing any spring tournaments? What are kind of the hot spots for you to go to?
So we're trying to hit some of the major tournaments. So for us, coming up, the next bigger one is the Jefferson Cup. That seems to be one where always a lot of talent is coming together. I went out to the Surf Cup this summer out in California. That was a pretty good, I think, pool of players too. So we're trying to have at least one coaching member at some of the bigger tournaments. Like you have the Las Vegas Mayor Cup that always is pretty big. You have the Disney Cup around the end of the year that usually happens, some of the bigger ones. And then based on the players that we're recruiting, we might go to some of the smaller regional tournaments, but also high school games. So it kind of depends if we can get, to a high school game where there's 3-4 guys that we have currently look at, we'll try to make it out to that and then get a look in person.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, you also mentioned you guys do ID camps. How important is that to your recruiting process?
It has been in the past. We're kind of in a transition with this whole move down here to Jersey City, Manhattan. So when we were up at Nyack, we had our own facility, so things were a lot easier to organize and set up ID camps. Right now, we're mainly renting out fields from the Jersey City department, so it's not as easy to set those up. So we've been we haven't done any in the last 2 years, but it's definitely a goal for me to set that back up and make that part of our recruiting process, just because you sometimes find that diamond in the rough, right? That you may have overlooked because maybe they didn't play at a club, or they only played high school. They didn't have the financial resources to go to all these showcases, tournaments. We want to make sure that we can find those players too, because we do believe, especially in the area where we are, the New York City metro area, there's tons of talent that you might not see at those showcases.
Makes a lot of sense. So when you're out and about recruiting and looking at players, what is your hierarchy of attributes that you're looking for in players, whether that's on the field or off the field? What sticks out to you that, I got to have this or this?
Yeah. So I have a detailed description for each position in the system, that, or in the playing style, that we prefer, what we need from a player in a certain position. So like, and that my coaching staff has that, so they know if I say, hey, we need a center back, they know exactly what to look at, like what height are we looking at, like what other attributes, physical attributes are we looking at. So that's part one. That's kind of gets you the foot in the door, I would say. If you fulfill those requirements, now we're interested. The biggest part, however, for me is character. It comes down to character. Getting to know you. Do I feel like I'm building a connection with you? Do I feel like your character, your persona, your strengths could be a good addition to our program?
No, that makes sense. Now, looking at your roster, it seems to have a heavy lean towards the international front. So, how does that come into play? How are you getting those players in and seeing them, and are you looking to keep it that way? Are you looking more domestic? How does that all work out?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Prior to me taking over the program, it was a very international leaning program. I think part of it is also me being international. So I was born, raised in Germany, came over to play here in the US, and then switched over into coaching part of the job. So I think it was like it was an avenue that was established for us. Like, there's a lot of connections that I have overseas with either friends of mine or people that I've known that I cross paths with, that we work with. There's a different trust level that we built, where, if they offer me a player, they know exactly what I'm looking for, but I also know what I'm getting when I work with those guys. However, we do want to establish a more domestic presence. That was one of the goals that I had when I took the program over, but it takes a little bit more time, just because we have to, those connections that we have overseas, we have to establish them within the US, and just build connections with different high schools, club programs whatsoever. But there's definitely the desire and the goal to bring more domestic talent onto the team. I just think soccer is developing phenomenally in the US. I think it's on the rise. I mean, we see it with all the international talent, or the US talent that now plays internationally at some of the biggest clubs in the world. So I definitely think there's plenty of talent out there. And I think what makes the US unique is we have so many different cultures that are coming together, right? And most other cultures, like if we take South America or European, there's a certain set of players that kind of like that, except for some exceptions, it's mostly the same kind of player. Where in the US, I feel like we have so many different immigration and cultures coming together from all kinds of different backgrounds, from Asian, South Americans, white, African Americans. So there's so many different backgrounds, so many different attributes and talents that are coming together, where I feel like that's just in the coming years, the sky's the limit. I think if the US can figure out how to form that talent and target it towards the national team, and then put the structure into the whole player development, and really setting a plan, a path for a player. right, to be a professional. So that's the goal for us, like finding more domestic players, making them part of our program. I think you have to find a good mix, especially at the D2 level. If you look at some of the more successful programs, they usually have a good mix between domestic and internationals.
Yeah, for sure. Being Division II, you have athletic scholarships, and Nyack being a private school, and I'm sure scholarships in general and financial aid come into play for a lot of players. So how does that work at your school in terms of the mix of academic and athletic money and that sort of thing?
So we usually give offers in total packages. So we look at what you would qualify for from academic perspective. There's other grants, international grants, service grants, whatsoever, and then we top it off with athletic money and offer a total package at the end of the day that we give out to the recruits.
And have you found that's been able to satisfy a lot of the for lack of a better term, the needs of recruits who are interested, or are you guys able to kind of meet what I guess the expectations or the needs of players when they come in, especially the international players who aren't used to that kind of thing because they're used to playing for a club that pays for everything, right?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. I think we're in the same boat with a lot of smaller private schools where budget restraints and whatsoever. So for us, for example, the minimum that every athlete pays coming into next year is $18,000 a year. So it definitely limits a little bit the pool of athletes that you can reach, because for some that's just financially not feasible. But there's still, I think, a lot of players out there who can afford that, and I think we're not, the fact that we're not the only school that deals with those struggles, I think makes it still manageable for us.
Yeah,
but it definitely limits the pool at times.
sure. Well, let's talk about the school a little bit. You mentioned the Jersey City, Manhattan kind of structure you guys got there. So, I can click around the website and learn about Nyack, but the good thing is you were also an alumnus, right? You played and went to school there, so you probably have better perspective than most. So, what makes Nyack cool? What's the awesome things about it that most people aren't going to know?
I would have said the people. I think especially in our transition, right? There's a lot of alumni who, were critical towards the move of, because like Nyack up at the Rockland campus, it's such a big history, like for how long the campus has been there. So now to kind of like give this up and move down to Jersey City / Manhattan, where for me it was never necessarily about the building or the memories that come with it, but it was about the people. Like at Nyack, I've met met my wife. I met people that walk alongside my journey now. My best friend, my mentor who married me and my wife. So there's a lot of people that I cross paths with that have influenced me. Professors, right? They don't just, like, some of my professors that I still stay in touch with to this day is like we would go on missions trip or we would build relationships. So you're not just another number in the classroom. I really felt like they were genuinely interested in me as a person. So that, I think, is the one thing that you probably won't find on the website, but it's just the people for me that make Nyack, not necessarily the location or the buildings or where we're at, but really the people that you get to do life together with.
That's great. Well, you kind of mentioned, there's the academic stuff is in Manhattan, the athletic stuff right now is in Jersey City. So students kind of have to balance back and forth between those two spaces. But, how else do your student athletes balance the whole weight of academics and athletics, just in terms of their day-to-day activities?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a lot easier during season because we're a lot busier during season, so it limits the time that you have. And I think it automatically forces our athletes to be more organized because you have limited time during that period. The biggest challenge that we see is during the spring, just because now you have more time. You got the city right across the hut, so there's always time to go explore. So we put different measures in place from the coaching staff's perspective, like study hall, etc., individual meetings, grade check-ins, stuff like that, just to kind of like make sure that the guys in our example work on their grades, because at the end of the day, you are, student first, athlete second. Most of our guys aren't going to go on and play professional soccer afterwards. They're going to go into professional careers. So we want to make sure that as part of their journey is not at Nyack, they are prepared as best as they can academically to have a successful career afterwards. So just, I think, us helping them, being organized, learning how to time manage. And I think that's something that's, even for afterwards, with your career is important. And I think that's one of the neat things or unique things about our commute, if you want to say so, the whole, taking the PATH subway over to Manhattan. It's a commute that a lot of professionals do on a daily basis to get to work. And I think it kind of prepares our students in college already to take that responsibility, that time management, and then kind of see what it's like once college is over.
That would be a good experience. So what would a typical day during the season look like in terms of, I'm a student athlete, soccer player, what am I doing from the time I get up to the time I go to bed during the season?
Yes, so we practice early in the morning, 8 to 10. So first thing you do is play soccer, and then if we have a normal practice day, you would then go on to your classes in the city, and come back from the city and do homework pretty much, depending if we have a game the next day. There might be a meeting at night. So what we like to do before game days is kind of like a game prep meeting. We will just kind of go over the opponent, some of the strengths, weaknesses, but also going over our match plan for the games, so we're on the same page. And then hopefully you would go to bed so you're well rested for the next day to get going. Right, and then on game day it seems similar, just that we wouldn't practice in the morning. We'll just eventually get ready to head over to the games.
So for your games, what does your kind of travel radius look like? How does that work into the schedule? And are they missing a lot of classes or not? And that whole thing.
I think again our location is sets us up superb there. We are in the Central Atlantic Collegiate Conference, CACC, and they actually made it one of the requirements in order to join our conference as a college. You have to be within a 3-hour distance. So the furthest we ever drive is 3 hours, and with our move, actually 2 hours down to Delaware and or to Connecticut. So most of the games we play is within 2 to 1 hour distance. So limited time that the guys really miss in the classroom. When we look at the non-conference schedule, it's similar, just because we have 3 other conferences, or the ECC that's fairly close, but then even the NE10 is not super far away, so there's a lot of options for us to play against teams in the New York City metro area. So again, limits the time that we have to spend on the road to get to 2 games. And then usually the first 2 games of the season, we do a little bit bigger trip. Like this year, we went up to New Hampshire. We stayed in a camp up there, kind of used it as a team retreat thing, but then also played 2 games up in New Hampshire and then headed back down to the city.
That's great. Well, just in terms of playing, and let's talk about the team and the soccer side of things a bit. How big a roster do you like to keep? What's your ideal size?
So I think we have to differentiate between what is my ideal size and what the institution like. I think that's a dilemma that a lot of coaches have to deal with these days, just because a lot of
Sure.
coaches are being asked to carry bigger rosters. Luckily for me, my number and the number the institution gives me, they're not too far apart. So we are right now, we're somewhere between like 25 to 30 people. That's kind of like the number that we have. And then I think that's a number I can work with. Anything beyond 30, I would see critical. But I think kind of like that number is manageable.
Yeah. What about your soccer staff? How big a staff do you have, and what is each person's role within the squad?
Yes, so this year I got lucky. I got a lot of help. So I have an assistant coach who's from the area, who I found, and he's been phenomenal, kind of being a good addition to myself, very personal, and then takes the guys off the side one-on-one within practice, and just kind of like takes that part where I can oversee more the bigger picture. And then I have one of our strikers actually became our grad assistant this year, and he's been phenomenal so far, especially in the recruiting process. So if you're a recruit, you might hear from him at some point, just because he's been taking a lot of that over, reaching out, having Zoom calls with prospective student athletes. So he's been great. And we have a goalkeeper graduate assistant coach who is responsible for both the men's and the women's program. And then I have a volunteer assistant coach who lives like an hour away, but he tries to make it to as many practices as he can. But he's also a good connection piece for us within what we said earlier, the domestic market. One of the reasons why we brought him on staff is because he's very knowledgeable when it comes to clubs and schools within the Central Jersey, South Jersey area. So we brought him on with the idea that we can start building that network within that realm of New Jersey and open that market up for us to possibly bring recruits in from that area.
Okay. We're currently talking here in March, so it's the off season. So what does your typical off season program look like?
So we are in the last week before spring break. So right now we are in our 8 hours a week. So the 4 hours with ball, 4 hours without. So we have strength and conditioning Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then we practice on Tuesday and Thursday at the moment. We have a leadership session on Saturdays where we just kind of talk through our identities as players, but also identities as a team, just to create increased level of ownership, which I think is important, right? It's not just my program, it's the guys' program. I'm just a part of it. So we want to make sure that we can create an identity, shared values, stuff like that, that the guys can identify with, that comes from them. It's player driven, it's not coaches driven. So that's something that we're working through at the moment. Just, we did, for example, we had the guys go to strength finders, kind of figuring out what are their individual strengths, how does that, play into their identities on an individual level, and then how is each individual, playing into the identity of the whole team. And then based on that came up with what's your role in the team, how does your team see your role in the team, just kind of get that perspective on a personal but also external level. And then we're currently working on shared team values. So we came up with values, and now we're kind of like on a weekly basis digging a little bit deeper into those values and what it means, for example, to have discipline, right? If that's one of the values, what does that look like? What's discipline look like on and off the field? What's discipline look like in the dorm room? Different things like that. So that's what we're currently working through. The guys are going on spring break next week, and then once we come back, we start our non-championship segment, and we practice Tuesday to Friday, and then we also have 4 scrimmages set up at the moment for the spring.
That's fantastic. I love that that team value and strength stuff. That's awesome. So how would you describe your style of coaching and your team style of play?
I would say very personable, but also with the edge of a winning mentality. So I think I can get loud at times when things don't go the way I would like them to be. Not so much, like I always say to you guys, like, mistakes are normal. We want to I almost want to, it sounds weird, but I want to encourage mistakes, because that's when you learn and when you grow. As long as the effort is right, I think that's the best way to describe it, right? As long as you can walk off the field at the end of the day and say, I gave 100% of my best today, and everything may have not worked out the way I wanted it, but I gave it 100%, I will never criticize you for it. But if I feel like you're not bringing that standard, of excellence and making sure that I give my 100% best today, that's when we have a problem. That's when I get frustrated at times with the guys, and where we just need to increase the level. But besides that, we're all human, we make mistakes, so we want to continue to grow, continue to learn. Sometimes I push them maybe a little bit too hard, but in general, that's the biggest thing. I want to make the guys better, and I try to find a fine line between being personal but also being their coach, because reality is a lot of these guys are international, so their families are thousands of miles away from where we are. So I'm in most cases, I'm the first adult supervision guardian, whatever you want to call it, that they have access to, right? So I want to make sure that they feel comfortable coming to me and talking about things. Like I think that's kind of like the unique part of being a college coach, because you get to be around your players 24/7. So kind of like finding good balance of being, their personal mentor in a sense, but also their coach, and helping them to become better on a daily level. And I think when we talk about coaching style, is you have to get to know the players, because no two players are alike. They have different, they are so different in how they put together their strengths, how they receive criticism. Like one guy might, he might need you to yell at him, that gets him going. The other guy might need more like the personal conversation, where you take him to the side and just kind of go from there. So just realizing what your players are like, what they need to really become better, I think is the big thing. At the end of the day, I'm there to help them become better players, and that's what, like, when someone struggles in my team, the first question I usually, how can I help you? Like that's my question. What do you need from me? How can I help you? Because like I think oftentimes as in coaching, it's easy to just kind of fall into this pit where you just look at them at items that help you, win games. But there's real individuals out there on the field, and they have tough days, they have good days, but how can we come alongside them and help them become better people, better players, better students? I think that's the biggest thing. In terms of playing style, the easiest way to sum it up is very proactive. So I'm not a big fan of teams that just kind of like sit back and see what happens. I want to force our style upon the opponent. So if we talk in the 4 phases of the game, right, offense, defense, transitions from either to the other. Offensively, we're looking for a very flexible, fluid style, lots of rotations, interchanges, not really position specific, but really working with the space. Where is the space? How can we move the opponent to create space? How can we exploit that space? And then defensively, we try to press high. We want to force turnovers early up in the opponent's half, just because if you win the ball high up the field, you're closer to the opponent's goal. Hopefully, then of those turnovers, you can create more chances. If you create more chances, you score more goals. And then the transition pieces, I think, kind of like fall into it. If we talk about offense to defense transition, we want to win the ball back as quick as we can. So usually within the first 5 seconds of a turnover, we try to have the guys hunt after the ball again, just because the opponent's still unorganized, right? Might not really have figured out yet where's my next passing option, exert a lot of energy, stuff like that. So there's a bigger chance of winning the ball right back. And then when we talk about transition from defense to offense, is really, we want to get forward quick. Right, so I always say our first look is forward. We might not always play that ball, but our first look is always forward. How can we get down the field as quickly as possible? That kind of sums it up. There's obviously a lot more detail that goes into it, but that gives you a little bit of a synopsis of what we're looking for.
Oh, that's great. Well, we've talked about a lot of different things here, so I'll wrap it up with one last kind of catch-all question here. What else is there that we didn't talk about that you want prospects or families or anybody to know about your school, your team, or anything else?
I think the one thing that I always leave recruits with is this is your journey, right? You have to make the decision that you feel is best for you. As coaches, sometimes it can get frustrating, right? If you spend hours and hours with a recruit on the phone, and then at the end they decide to go to a different school. But I think we need to remind ourselves that, again, it's individuals that we're dealing with, and it's their journey. It's, at the end of the day, part of being a college coach is also being part of young women and men's journeys along the line of growing up and becoming the next generation. So I think the biggest advice, or the biggest thing that I want you to take away is, like, pick the school where you can yourself feel at home for the next 4 years, because that's what it is. It's your home for the next 4 years. So pick a school that you can identify with, that shares similar values, right? Where you have a good connection with the team, with the coaching staff, where the overall package just, you feel like this is the right place for me. Because if you're not happy with one thing, eventually down the line, it's going to add up, and, you're going to be miserable and start looking to transfer and whatsoever. So find a school. Like, don't chase through that surge of college just because the pressure comes, but like make sure that you really find a school that's the right fit for you.
Absolutely. Great advice. Well, Coach, I appreciate the time. We wish you the best of luck next season. And if I get up to Manhattan, I'll have to swing by and check out the Jersey City digs as well.
Sounds good. Thanks
All
for
right.
taking the time. It's been fun.
All right. Thanks, Coach. We'll talk soon.